episode Wealth in Christ podcast, a show where we encourage the masses to build while building God's kingdom. On the podcast today, we have Mr. Tim Bratz. Mr. Tim Bratz is the founder and CEO of Legacy Wealth Holding. And today we're going to talk about Mr. Bratz's journey into owning 408 apartment units. So thank you for being here, Mr. Tim Bratz.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
What led you to get started in real estate?
Yeah, man. So I got started in real estate back when the market was going crazy before. So 2003 to 2007, I was in college and just saw there was a lot of people building a lot of wealth in real estate. And so I worked in the trades a little bit. I started a painting company. I interned for a big home builder, just kind of learned the business. And then when I graduated in 2007, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally, but I moved out to New York City. And when I moved out to New York, I got my real estate license. I thought that's what everybody did in order to get into real estate. And I started brokering real estate on the commercial side. So I would represent retail spaces and office spaces, or represent a business owner who was looking for a retail space or an office space. And you brokered a couple of deals, saw how much money there was in owning real estate versus brokering real estate. I wanted the residual income, that passive income that I think a lot of us get into real estate for, and ended up, kind of taking a leap into the investment side. So 2008, I decided to move down to Charleston, South Carolina, and learn how to become a real estate investor. And that's really when the bottom fell out of the market, which was a blessing and a curse, right? Like I got into the real estate world when everybody was saying run from real estate. So there wasn't access to a lot of money like there is today, but there was access to a lot of deals like there's not today, right? And so very opposite of what today's real estate market looks like. And there were a lot of deals at pennies on the dollar. And so I just got, I started thinking outside the box and ended up buying my first house on my credit card in 2009 when I was 23 years old, and just fixed it up myself. Did all the work, had a couple of my buddies come in and help out, and literally paid them with pizza and beer, and then just renovated the house and ended up selling it and made a little over $13,000 of profit. And I remember thinking, man, I don't even know what I'm doing, and I'm making money in the real estate world when everybody's saying run from real estate. And so it really, built a lot of belief. I thought, hey, if I did it one time, I could definitely do it again. And I just kept my head down. I did it again, and eventually met private money lenders, and eventually, built up a network of people who could help source deals for me, and got a little bit better on operations, and continue to just build the portfolio that way. So today I have a little over 4,800 apartment units spread across 12 different states. And just keep my head down, man, doing the same thing.
Well, that's pretty cool, and it's funny that you started after a crash in the market, and you were still able to find deals and get your foot into the game. So quickly before I go into the next question, what would you say to someone, being the fact that you said like right now everything is kind of flipped, where there is money but there's not that many deals, to someone who's on the sideline but wants to get into real estate?
Yeah, I think the two things you always got to be doing is sourcing money and sourcing deals. You got to always be out there looking for opportunities. And so, I had to get really good at creatively financing and structuring deals back when there wasn't very much money. I had to get seller financing. I had to bring on private money lenders and hard money lenders, and just kind of talk to people about what I was doing and how I was doing it, and plant as many seeds as I possibly could, and hope that some of them would sprout from the ground and end up lending me some money. As the market has shifted, you just got to get really good at sourcing great deals. If you can go find a deal, the money's definitely out there. And there's countless resources out there. If you just Google search, how do I find off-market, direct-to-seller real estate deals? And there's going to be a ton of Google search results that pop up, and just start combing through them and try to figure out, you can source deals through tax auctions. You can source deals through direct mailers. You can drive around neighborhoods and just look for tall grass and boarded up windows. You can do outbound phone calls, call for sale by owners, call for rent by owners, and say, hey, I'm not interested in renting your house, I'm interested in buying it. There's a thousand different things. You can go network on social media. There's a lot of people who have access to deals, but maybe not have access to the resources to take those deals down, and they wholesale those deals. And so you pay them a little fee, you get to take the deal off their hands, they make money, you make money. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. You just got to go and get educated, go and learn, and start asking the right questions, right? Like everybody says, oh, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? The more pointed, the more direct your questions are, the better the answer is going to be, right? And so like if you jump on Google and you looked up Italian restaurants, it's going to pull up every Italian restaurant in the entire country. But if you said Italian restaurants with a 4-star rating or better, moderately priced in Tampa, Florida, then it's going to only populate certain restaurants in Tampa, Florida. So you're going to get a more direct shot and a more direct, specific answer. So the more specific your questions are of what you're looking for, go and plug that into Google, right? Like I use Google as an example, but that's not just in asking yourself questions about life, but really asking yourself questions about real estate. Hey, how do I find, Tim, where do you get the money in order to buy these houses and apartments and blah, blah, blah? I don't know. Have you ever Google searched private money lenders in St. Paul, Minnesota, right? Like hard money lenders in Chicago, Illinois. Like just Google search hard money lenders for real estate, private money lenders for real estate in whatever your town is. Go and join the local Facebook groups and plug into the different Facebook groups that are real estate specific for your city. Almost every single city has a Facebook group of real estate professionals that are out there investing and doing deals. Plug into there, link arms with somebody who's pretty active in there and putting out a lot of value, and go and work with them, go and partner with them, go and work for free, go and intern with them, like whatever you need to do in order to get yourself into the game to learn the business.
No, that's definitely 100%. So there's really no excuse why no one can get into real estate. So my next question is, I see that with your, looking at your biography, that you get your first property, doing a cash advance, you did that, but you kind of got stuck. And that's how you had a partnership which helped you scale to 100. So could you talk about that a little bit more?
I built up a small portfolio by myself, just kind of raising some private money, and then followed some new business opportunities, ended up selling that portfolio, kind of definitely went broke in 2012, and got out of these other businesses that I was pursuing in order to focus on real estate again full time. And there's some people who reached out to me that I met through business, and they said, hey man, you have the knowledge and the skill set and the insights on investing in real estate. We have money. How about we just put some money with you? And they ended up, I ended up exclusively partnering with these couple of guys, and they put up a few $100,000, which was actually, you could do some damage with that, because I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, where you could buy houses for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 back at the bottom of the market. And we ended up, going into business together, and I started building a portfolio and a little over 100 doors, and just buying single family houses, flipping single family houses, buying duplexes for rentals, triplexes for rentals. Got in my first 8-unit apartment building, and I really like the scale that apartment buildings offered. So really went deep into that, stopped doing everything else just to focus on apartments. And again, built that portfolio up to about 140 doors. And then that partnership ended up going south. A lot of partnerships, when they're exclusive partnerships, life happens, right? You could make money, you could lose money. Somebody could get married, somebody could have a kid, somebody could have other business ventures, other opportunities, things that change and happen. And so I don't really like exclusive partnerships. The only person I want to be married to is my wife. That's it. But I like joint venturing on a deal by deal basis with other people. And if we like doing business together, we can continue to do business together. But what happened when I got married to those guys, by having an exclusive relationship, an exclusive partnership with them, is when we decided to break up and go our separate ways, we had to liquidate our entire portfolio. So I had to press the reset button again and start from scratch again in 2015, 2016. but I had the experience, right? I had the knowledge, I had some of the resources and connections that I built up. So I was able to get my feet back under me pretty quickly thereafter. I was able to grow the portfolio pretty rapidly with the amount of experience and background that I had developed.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, wow. So being the fact that you lost, lost twice in your early careers from 2008 to 2016, what would you say is some key things you learned, during that space of losing what?
Yeah, I think focus would be one, right? Don't chase shiny objects. Uh, there's a lot of opportunities out there right now. People are talking about cryptocurrency, and people talking about e-commerce stores, and people talking about real estate. People are talking about, I have buddies who sell baseball cards and make hundreds of thousands of dollars a month off of selling and flipping baseball cards and basketball cards, right? And, there's people who flip vehicles, cars and trucks, and there's such a shortage of vehicles right now that people are making a lot of money in that business. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. Find one, right? Like, you cannot become an expert unless you dedicate 10,000 hours to one thing. And when I see people jumping from, and so break that down, 10,000 hours on a 40-hour work week is essentially 2,000 hours per year, which means it takes 5 years to become an expert at anything. And when you see people, who are in their 20s and 30s who jump around from job to job or opportunity to opportunity every 2 to 3 years, that tells you that they're not becoming an expert at anything, right? And they think things are going to happen sooner than they actually will. But really, it takes a couple of years of planting seeds. It takes a couple of years of cultivating those seeds before you actually get that harvest and you're able to then consume in year 5 and beyond. So you got to go out and just become an expert. Once you become an expert in something, then you can say, hey, let me automate this business. It's easy, it's simple, it's on autopilot. And then you can look at opportunity number 2 or deal number 2. Or if you're really good at building out a team, then maybe you can put the right team in place and then go focus. But all the most successful people I know dedicate minimum 5 to 7 years to any business venture that they're going to get into. If they're not going to do it for 5 to 7 years, they typically don't do that business. They don't start that business. They don't pursue that opportunity. So I know everybody wants that short-term capital, that short-term money. The reality is you're gonna overestimate what you can accomplish in 12 months, right? Like, we all have big goals, but it takes longer than 12 months to achieve those goals. I will say this though, you will grossly underestimate what you can accomplish in 3 to 5 years. You might say, hey, I want 100 doors in 3 to 5 years. You might hit 500. You might hit 1,000. You might hit 1,500 rental units in 3 to 5 years. I started building my portfolio in end of 2015. And in 5 years, built it up to over 4,000 doors. I never would have thought that. My goal was 1,000. I want to get to 1,000 doors. I thought, hey, if I could hit 1,000, I'd do it. That first year, I picked up 80. Right? That was actually pretty good. That was one building, 80 units. But it wasn't anywhere where I needed to be in order to get me to 1,000. And I got to 5,000 or 4,000. I'm at almost 5,000 now, but it's been almost 6 years. So it's just be focused, right? Real estate's not an experiment. It's going to work. You just got to stick with it and give it the amount of time in order for you to kind of catch some momentum. So, and that goes for any business venture, whether it's real estate or anything else that you do. Make a commitment of 5 years. If you're not going to do it for 5 years, don't do it. So that would be one. Another would be don't get married to other business partners. Joint venture on a deal by deal basis, right? And if you do want to partner with somebody, really think about it. Really sit down, talk about all the different things that could happen. If anything ever happens to your business partner, do you want to be in business with their spouse? Would they be a good business partner? Or do you need some sort of buyout clause if that happens? Do you need life insurance that buys out their position? Do you need, what does it look like when times are good? What does it look like when times are bad? Like, you've got to talk and have some of those difficult conversations to set proper expectations on the front end.
Wow. That's definitely a whole lot. So with this partnership, learning from that partnership and not getting married, you spoke about joint ventures on a deal by deal basis. So how do you structure your partnerships on a deal by deal basis?
Yeah. So every different apartment building is its own LLC. So we create a new LLC for every deal. So if I'm going to go buy 123 Main Street apartment building, we're going to create 123 Main Street LLC. And that LLC is going to have its own operating agreement, which means you can change what equity percentage you have or what I have or what the investors have for every single deal. So it allows you to then get creative on whatever that deal is and however you want to break that deal up and however you want to partner with somebody. But if that partnership doesn't end up going well, then you just sell off that one property instead of all of your properties. Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So being as going through your ups and downs, how has your faith, in God like help you stay focused, and not lose track of the goal,
Yeah, man. I think it's, the awesome part about faith is it's pretty optimistic, and, going into any situation, there's going to be a positive side and a negative side. And I think, maybe it's society or culture, or maybe it's just ingrained in our DNA in some way. But a lot of times people go to the negative side, meaning they get pessimistic, or they think about the downside risks, or they get fearful of what could happen if things don't go right. The opposite of fear is faith, right? And being optimistic and realizing that fear and faith are essential. They're the same thing, except they're both believing in something that has not yet come to pass. They're both believing in some future story, some future thing that we're telling in our own head. And the difference is one's negative and one's positive, right? Fear is negative and faith is positive. And the good news is we can choose. It's up to us. It's a story in our head. It's something that hasn't yet come to pass. And it's up to us to decide, are we going to go with the negative, fearful route, or are we going to go with the positive, faithful route? And I've always just decided, when you're thinking about, hey, should I buy this apartment building? Should I pursue this business? Should I try this new opportunity? You could ask yourself all the questions of what could go wrong, right? I could lose money. I could lose respect. I could do this. I could do that. I could all these terrible things. On the fear side of things, if you let fear control you. But if you're faithful, right, naturally that's more optimistic and more positive. And you say, hey, well, what about all the things that could go right instead of the things that could go wrong? What if I built financial freedom for my family? What if I could retire my spouse? What if I could retire my parents? What if I could build libraries? What if I could build churches? What if I could build hospitals? What if I could build schools because of the wealth that I create, because I did pursue this opportunity? And so instead of focusing on the negative and focusing on the downside, the fear side of things, I always try to focus on the optimistic upside, positive side, the faithful side of things. And I think, faith naturally helps you think more positive, right? With God's help, I can do anything. I can accomplish anything. I think that gives you some confidence in being able to pursue some of these new opportunities.
That's definitely great. So being the fact, you now over 4,800 plus units, why, you said earlier you found love in apartment buildings. Why were you so in love with apartment buildings? What made you niche down to wanting to acquire?
Yeah, residential, I come from the single family world. So the residential real estate was easy for me to wrap my head around. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I don't have a master's degree in finance or real estate. I don't come from a family that owned a bunch of real estate or owned a bunch of apartments or commercial properties. I essentially just figured it out from the school of hard knocks of just starting with a single family, buying another one, buying a duplex, buying a triplex, buying a quadplex, getting into an 8-unit. And when I bought that first 8-unit apartment building, it resonated with my sense of efficiency. I like scale, right? I like being able to go to one location instead of 8 locations. I like being able to go to, one 8-unit building versus 8 single-family houses is what I'm talking about, right? So you go to one location instead of 8 locations. You negotiate with one seller instead of 8 sellers. You draw up one contract instead of 8 contracts. You line up financing for one deal instead of 8 deals. You turn on utilities at one property instead of 8 properties. You pay one tax bill instead of 8 tax bills, right? You get the point of how much scale there is in owning apartment buildings instead of owning 8 single family houses. And I knew that if I wanted to grow the portfolio and grow my business substantially, I needed to have that kind of scale. I've gotten into a couple other different asset classes, like office buildings, like retail. I've gotten into short-term rentals. I've done some ground-up construction and development. I have some mixed-use properties, like retail on the ground floor with apartments above it, and self-storage facilities. Even looked at mobile home parks and a lot of different things. And the apartments is just so much more scalable. If the market shuts down, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are mandated by the federal government to continue lending on apartments. No other asset class has that, right? So there's some security and safety, and it's seen as something that's a very stable asset. It's easier for people to wrap their head around an apartment complex than it is, an office building or something along those lines. So it's just, it was the natural progression from single family to get into multifamily. It was also very easy for us to wrap our heads around operationally. It's easy for us to convey to our private money lenders for them to want to get involved with it. And it's just, I don't have the tolerance for, an office space or a retail space sitting vacant for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I like apartments because I can turn those units over immediately inside 30 days, right? And get them fully occupied again. So that will always sat with it, but also the scale that it can offer, being able to go and buy a 400 unit apartment complex in one single transaction was always very appealing. And how much can I grow, right? I don't have to do 400 deals a year. I can do 1 or 2 deals per year and just work smarter instead of harder.
That's 100. That makes 100%. So being the fact that it's much easier to scale apartments, how do you go by evaluating whatever deal that comes on your desk?
Yeah, I mean that's I think probably one of the main reasons why people don't get into apartments and commercial real estate, because they're not sure how to value it, right? And if you have a single family house, you can jump on Zillow and see what the Zestimate says on what that single family house is worth. Or you can look at what other properties that have sold in the area and kind of compare it. Well, my square footage is a little bit more, but they have an extra bathroom than I do, and blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of figure out whatever that valuation is. That's called the comparable valuation approach. That's looking at other comps in the area and saying, hey, based on what this property sold for, my property's worth this. That is not how apartment buildings are valued. Apartment buildings are valued kind of like businesses, right? So it's based on the net operating income of how much income does the property generate minus the expenses equals that net operating income, the how much money you left with after all the operating expenses are taken out. And then the property's value at some multiple of that. So that's called a cap rate. So if you bought an apartment building, and let's say you bought a property and it generates $100,000 a year in rents, and it's got about $50,000 a year in operating expenses. That means you're left with $50,000 a year of net operating income. Depending on what type of return on investment you want to make on your money, let's say, Dami, you want a 10% return on your investment. For something that generates $50,000 a year, in order for you to get a 10% return on your investment, that means you'd be willing to pay $500,000 for that deal. Does that make sense? Because $50,000 on a $500,000 investment is 10%. And most of the real estate markets today are closer to like 5%. So somebody might pay somewhere in that neighborhood of $1 million for that apartment building. Just based on how much money is out there and needs to be deployed, they might pay $1 million for that apartment building because interest rates are so low and they can get a good return on their investment by leveraging a bank loan at 3% interest rate, and just kind of go down that road and play with the finances and the economics. So that's how properties are valued. When you go in to underwrite a deal, you go and look at what could the market rate rent be. I'm looking at right now it's rented for $600 a month. but I can run some rental comparables and see, hey, down the street, a 2-bedroom is rented for $800 a month, right? And the 1-bedrooms are rented for $700 a month. And so we can bump up the rents across the board. And so that gives me and then I can multiply that out by how many 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms I have to get the gross revenue that property can create. And then it's easy to look at what the expenses are. You can look up the utility bills. You can look up the tax bill. You can have your insurance agent run the insurance. You can kind of formulate what the property management costs would be and what the maintenance expenses are going to be. And then so you take the total rents minus all those expenses equals your net operating income. And then you figure out what type of multiple the properties are selling for in that area. And you can just reach out to like a mortgage broker or a real estate broker in the area and say, hey, what kind of cap rate are properties selling for in Dallas, Texas, or Austin, Texas, or New Orleans, Louisiana, or whatever market that you're in. And then they give you whatever that multiple is. And so that way you can kind of reverse engineer the numbers. Once you figure out how many units the property has, the unit mix, meaning how many 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, and then whatever the market rate rent can be, you can kind of back into what the net operating income is. So like I know what a property is worth or what it's going to be worth once it's renovated and all filled up with good management and everything in place before I ever even contract the property to purchase it. So it's very predictable for me and my team because we know exactly what those numbers and what those formulas are. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier if you can actually put pen to paper and go through the numbers. And obviously we can't do that here, but if you guys are interested, I got a training, just connect with me on social media and connect with me on Facebook and Instagram, just kind of like how Dami and I did. And I can kind of point you to the right resources and how to underwrite some of these deals.
That's great. That's great. One thing I want to ask, I know as you get bigger and bigger apartments, 200, 300, you do have to deal with vacancies of, apartments not always being occupied. So how do you deal with that as an owner?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have good operations, right? In order to take deals down, you just need money and to find a deal, right? But in order to keep a deal, in order to keep a property, you got to have good operations. And that comes down to, do you have good project management to manage the renovations and manage the contractors? Do you have good property management who's going to pay attention to these vacancies and get them leased up as soon as they come online? Are they thinking ahead on all this stuff, right? And then number 3 would be, do you have good asset management? So we have multiple layers of people paying attention to our properties. So if we have a 100-unit apartment building, we might have a full-time property manager, a leasing agent, and maybe 2 maintenance persons. So we have that property level management. Then I have property management, a third-party company that handles more of the bookkeeping and an advisory type of a role for the on-site type people. They're a resource for the on-site people. Let's say the leasing agent quits or gets fired. That property management company would hire somebody else to then go and work at the property again. And then on top of, so I have the property, the on-site property staff. Then I have the third-party management company. Then I have my team, which is the asset management company. They're the ones paying attention to the management company, making sure the management company is doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're the ones making sure that the on-site property managers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're getting on a phone call once a week and just checking the numbers, checking the occupancy, checking the rental rates, the leasing rates, and collections. And you got to pay attention to this stuff, right? It's not, I know a lot of people, tout the passive investment stuff, but the reality is it's more residual income, right? It's more residual where you get paid on it over and over again, but you still got to be active. You still have to pay attention. These are multi-million-dollar properties, multi-million-dollar assets to you that can generate a lot of wealth, or it can take your legs out, right? You can lose some money on some of these things if you do a bad deal or if you don't pay attention to your property. So make sure you're paying attention to it. You're the owner, and you got to be the one who's actually out there and reviewing the statements, putting your eyeballs on the property, making sure that it's clean, safe, functional, and maybe not every day, but I'd say a couple times a month, you should be out there. Somebody from your team should be out there walking the property and making sure that everything is looking and operating the way that you want it to be.
That's great. That's great. So out of all these, the 400, 800 plus unit, what percentage do you own for each thing?
Yeah, there's some deals where I own 20%. There's other deals where I own 100%. So really, commercial real estate is a team sport, right? In single family, I owned 100% of all those deals, but that also means 100% of the responsibility, 100% of the liability fell on me. When I got into multifamily, it's more of a team sport. So I'm able to focus on the things that we're really good at. And because we're able to focus on the things that we're really good at, and we're able to partner with people on the things that maybe we're not so good at, but they are experts at, we can accomplish more together, right? 1 + 1 = 3. We can actually do more because we're both focused on what our expertises are. And so I'm fine partnering up with other people and joint venturing on deals, again, on a deal by deal basis with other people, and letting them bring their skill set to the table and my team bringing our skill set. So overall, I probably own, I don't know, let's call it 40% of my total portfolio, somewhere in that ballpark. But 40% of $400 million is $160 million, right? If we paid everything off over the next 20, 30 years, and property values doubled over the next 20 or 30 years, that means my net worth is somewhere in the ballpark of $300 million.
Jeez.
Not bad.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
That's me never doing another deal. That's just with my current portfolio, paying it off and continuing to manage that for the next 20, 30 years.
That's great. So what is the future for you and your company? You're gonna, like, is there a goal you guys trying to reach? Right.
Yeah, kind of like what I mentioned earlier is like, I used to set these long-term goals, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year goals. And the reality is you can't even fathom what could be the opportunity 20 years from now, and how things might change 20 years from now. And so I don't really set goals out that far any longer. I usually set like 36-month goals, and then I set 12-month goals. I just kind of reverse engineer that. So, really my 24 to 36-month goal is to hit $1 billion in assets under management. So that's essentially buying $200 to $300 million of property per year. So that way we can get up to $1 billion. I think that's kind of a special number, where it gives us even more credibility in the real estate world. So we're really focused on that. We do have an education business, and we're looking to scale that up and build that, have more influence and more reach, and help more people in that capacity. And then, I have some investments into cryptocurrency. We're looking at some other different opportunities on how cryptocurrency and real estate can work together, and how we can integrate some of that. And really just, continuing to, I don't know where the opportunity is going to be in the next 36 months. So really, we're just keeping our head down, getting up to $1 billion in assets under management in the next 24 to 36 months. And then assets under ownership, really. And then go from there. We'll see where the other opportunities are. Who knows? I might say, hey, I just want to hang out with my wife, my kids, and my dog, right? After that, at least for a few months, or 6 months, or 12 months, or 2 years, or travel the world, or do whatever, and then come back to doing business again. I don't know. So I just stick to, what does it look like in the short term? And then I just keep my head down and get to work, stay at work.
Wow. So was it, I mean, you talk about it's going to take about $200 to $300 million in deals per year in the next 3 years. But what is like the team and the partnership like to get to that goal? Like how?
Yeah, I mean, my current team is good to go, right? I don't really need to bring on more people, maybe one more asset manager. I'm hiring somebody who can hop from property to property right now. So that person will be hired by the end of the year. I'll probably have to bring on one more asset manager that maybe travels to the properties but doesn't stay on site as much. And then, we're looking at a lot of different things that we could do on the property management side, potentially developing our own software for property management, potentially building out our own in-house property management versus using third party, so we can maintain a little bit more control and really pay attention to the properties a bit more. So we're just, we're looking at a lot of that kind of stuff and seeing where we can refine, right? Not only do we want to grow the portfolio to 10,000 doors, but we also want to figure out how do we go from averaging $800 per tenant in total income, and how can we bump that up to 850 or 900? And it's not always through rent. It could be through different services, and maybe there's like tutoring services that the kids can go to after school that we can generate some additional revenue, and also help the parents with daycare and helping the kids with their homework while the parents are still at work, right? Maybe there's valet trash service where instead of you walking your trash down the stairs and out to the dumpster, maybe we can have our maintenance person. You just put your trash outside of your front door, and the maintenance person walks by and just grabs your trash and throws it in the dumpster for you. Would tenants pay an extra $1 a day for that? Maybe. I would think so. But who knows, right? Maybe we can add storage. Maybe we could add solar to all of our apartment buildings. Maybe there's things that we can do to increase that income, decrease those expenses, and that way both of those things increase the net operating income, which increases the value of our portfolio without adding more properties to our portfolio, right? So we're looking at refining and increasing the value of our current portfolio in addition to growing our portfolio, right? Now we have enough scale where we can do a lot of things, and gives us a lot of different options.
That's great. And when you get to that $1 billion, would you ever think of selling it, or this is something long-term to keep in the family?
Yeah, we're trying to get into nicer properties, bigger properties, better areas, all that kind of stuff right now, because we want to hold on to things long-term, right? I think you can get rich by selling, but you don't build wealth by selling, So I want to build wealth. So I'm looking to buy and hold. That's where the real wealth is built. So yeah, we're not really looking to sell. There might be some strategic sales that we make and things along those lines, but really we're buy and hold investors. I've sold a lot of stuff this year, but that's really only because it was in C-class areas that I didn't want to own in any longer. They were too small of apartment buildings, under 100 units or whatever, or maybe in states or areas with business partners that I didn't want to be in business with any longer. So there's probably always going to be a little bit of that, but we're really buy and hold investors, and that's our main outlook, is to buy, hold it. Instead of selling it, we can just refinance if we want to pull cash back out again in 10 or 20 years. We don't have to sell it in order to get the money out of it. We could just refinance it, put a new loan on it, pull the money off the table, and then redeploy that cash or put it in our pockets and just sit on it for another 10 to 20 years.
That's really great. That's really great. So I definitely want to say thank you for your time. It was definitely a pleasure to learn about your journey of reaching 4,800 units. Being that said, how can people, learn more about you? And do you have any program that people, or mastermind that people can join to learn more about?
Yeah, I think the best place to get a hold of me is through social media. All right, connect with me on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm also on TikTok. And then I have a YouTube channel called Legacy Wealth. And I put out a ton of content on there as well. Couple really, really high quality videos per week. And we're dropping content daily on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So make sure we're connected on those platforms. And then if you're interested in coaching or interested in learning more about how to scale your portfolio to get into apartments, I have a 3-day boot camp called commercialempire.com. It's done virtually. It's done by me and my team. And we talk, exactly how we got started, how we find deals, how we raise money, how we underwrite those deals, how we secure financing. Even if you don't have credit, even if you don't have experience, there's ways that you can joint venture and partner up. And we have a really, really powerful community of people who work together on deals. So that way you can get into more deals and start building some wealth together.
That's definitely sounds great. I definitely want to say thank you for your time. And you have a podcast that people can also find you on there too.
Yeah, it's on that Legacy Wealth YouTube channel. It's called Spilling the Beans. I really just sit down with local entrepreneurs and we just kind of grab coffee, and you can kind of be a fly on the wall and see what millionaires talk about whenever they sit down and grab coffee is kind of the idea of it. So yeah, we've got a lot of traction on that over the past really just 9-10 months that we've had that going, and we're excited to keep it going. We got a lot of amazing people that we've had on there, and many more that are coming on board too. So that we have in the pipeline. So yeah, I appreciate you, man. You asked a lot of great questions. Thanks so much for having me. And if there's anything I can do, just again, connect with me on social media.
No problem. Thank you again.